The massive doors of the Galactic Coalition building slid open with a soft hiss. Ambassador Kim Yuna walked through them, her black boots clicking against the smooth crystal floor.
Up.
Behind her, Captain Lee Doyan followed quietly, his military uniform perfectly pressed despite their long journey. The great hall stretched out before them like a glittering cave. Hundreds of alien beings sat in floating chairs arranged in circles around the center stage. Their eyes, tentacles, and various sensing organs all turned toward the two humans as they entered. Yuna had been to this place many times before. Each visit left her feeling smaller, more insignificant. The Coalition members never let humans forget that they were the newest, youngest species in the galactic community. Today felt different, though. Today she carried news that could change everything. The humans' request to speak announced a mechanical voice from the ceiling. Several alien delegates made sounds that might have been laughter. Others simply stared with what looked like boredom. Yuna stepped onto the speaking platform in the center of the room. The lights dimmed and a spotlight focused on her. She could feel hundreds of alien eyes watching her every move. "Honored members of the Coalition," she began, her voice steady, despite her racing heart. "I bring urgent news from the Outer Rim territories. Our archaeological teams have made a disturbing discovery. A large blue creature with many arms waved dismissively. More human theories about ancient ruins? How fascinating," it said, voice dripping with sarcasm. Other delegates chuckled. Yuna pressed on. "We have found evidence of an ancient enemy. Something that destroyed entire star systems long ago. The Devourers, and they are waking up." The room fell silent for a moment. Then the laughter began. It started as quiet chuckling from a few delegates, then grew into loud, mocking laughter that echoed off the crystal walls. Devourers. The blue creature's voice boomed across the chamber. What an imagination these young species have. "Next, you will tell us about space monsters and galactic ghosts." A tall, thin alien that looked like it was made of glowing energy spoke next. "Humans, you have been traveling between stars for what, 200 years? We have been exploring the galaxy for 50,000 years. If such creatures existed, we would have found them long ago." Yuna felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment and anger. Captain Doyen moved closer behind her, a silent show of support. She activated her portable hologram projector, filling the air above the platform with images of dead solar systems. "Look at this evidence," she said, her voice growing stronger. 17 solar systems in the Outer Rim, all completely empty. No planets, no asteroids, no debris. Just empty space where entire worlds used to exist. The energy being flickered with what might have been amusement. Space is vast, human. Many things can destroy planets. Supernovas, black holes, cosmic accidents. This proves nothing. The energy signatures are identical across all sites, Yuna continued desperately. Our scientists have spent years analyzing the data. These systems were not destroyed by natural disasters. They were consumed. "Consumed by what?" asked a creature that looked like a giant insect. "Your imagination?" The mocking laughter grew. Louder. Yuna felt her hands shake as she tried to maintain her composure. Behind her, Captain Doyan's jaw clenched tight. "You speak of ancient enemies," the blue creature said, its voice now cold and dismissive. "But you are barely more than children playing with toys. Your technology is primitive. Your understanding of the universe is limited. We have sensors that can detect threats from across the galaxy. If these devourers existed, we would know. Unless they are designed to hide from your sensors," Yuna said quietly. The room erupted in fresh laughter. "Hide from us? Child, our technology is beyond your comprehension. We can see through time itself, can detect the heartbeat of a single being from 1,000 light years away. Nothing can hide from the Coalition." Yuna looked around the chamber at the hundreds of smug faces staring down at her. She had traveled for months to reach this place. Her people had died gathering the evidence she now presented. And these beings treated her like a child telling scary stories. "We came here in good faith," she said, her voice growing colder. "We shared our findings freely, hoping to work together to face this threat. But you have made your position clear." "Indeed we have." the blue creature replied. "We have better things to do than listen to primitive fears and superstitions. This audience is over." Una straightened her shoulders and looked directly at the creature. "Very well. Humanity formally withdraws from Coalition space. We will handle this threat ourselves. But when the darkness comes, when your precious worlds start disappearing, remember this moment. Remember that we tried to warn you." The chamber fell silent for a heartbeat. Then the laughter began again, louder and more mocking than before. Una turned and walked toward the exit, her back straight and her head high. Captain Doyen followed close behind. As they reached the doors, she could still hear the aliens laughing at them. Once they were safely aboard their ship, Dojan finally spoke. "Ambassador, are you sure about withdrawing from Coalition space?" Una stared out at the stars through the ship's window. Her reflection looked back at her, ghostly and determined. "Captain, send a message to Earth. Tell them to recall all human vessels to the Sol system immediately. It is time to begin the Shadow Protocol." The ship's engines hummed to life as they began their journey home. Behind them, the Coalition continued, their laughter unaware that in the dark spaces between the stars, ancient eyes were opening, and an endless hunger was beginning to stir. The alarm bells had been silent for exactly 6 months and 14 days when they finally rang across the Coalition headquarters. Admiral Zexstar rushed into the command center, his blue skin pale with worry. "What is the situation?" he demanded. "Sir, we have lost contact with the Altarian Defense Force," reported his aide. "All 27 ships have stopped responding." Zexstar frowned. The Altarian fleet was the pride of the Coalition military. Their ships were equipped with the most advanced technology in the galaxy. They could not simply disappear. "Send a search team immediately," he ordered. 3 hours later, the search team arrived at the patrol zone. What they found made no sense. The space where 27 massive warships should have been was completely empty. No wreckage, no debris, no distress beacons floating in the void. Just empty darkness. "This is impossible," the search team leader reported back to headquarters. "There is nothing here. It is like the ships were never here at all." Far away, hidden in the cold shadows of Saturn's moon Titan, Admiral Park Ji-won watched the Coalition's confusion with grim satisfaction. The secret human listening post was buried deep under the moon's icy surface, invisible to even the most advanced Coalition sensors. "They still do not understand," she said quietly to Colonel Choi Min-soo, who stood beside her studying the incoming reports. The command center around them was small, but efficient. Dozens of human officers worked at their stations, monitoring Coalition communications across the galaxy. They had been watching and waiting for this moment for 6 months. "The Devourers are moving faster than we expected," Min-soo replied, pointing to his data tablet. 3 more star systems have gone silent in the past week, and the Coalition still thinks these are just accidents. Park looked up at the main display screen. It showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy with thousands of tiny lights representing star systems. But some of those lights were now dark, red, marking places where all communication had stopped. The pattern was clear to anyone who knew what to look for. The darkness was spreading in a straight line from the outer rim toward the center of the galaxy. Something was eating its way through Coalition space. Admiral called Lieutenant Kim Johan from his monitoring station. "The Coalition is finally responding. They are sending their first battle fleet to investigate." Park nodded grimly. The Coalition's first battle fleet was their most powerful military force. 100 ships armed with weapons that could destroy entire planets. If anyone could stop the Devourers, it should be them. For 2 weeks, the Coalition reported victories. Their admirals spoke confidently on the communication channels about defeating unknown hostile forces and primitive raiders. They bragged about their superior technology and ancient military experience. Park and her team listened to these reports with growing dread. They knew the Coalition was not fighting the real enemy yet. The Devourers were just testing them, learning about their weapons and defenses. Then everything changed. The first video transmission came from the Coalition flagship Eternal Glory. Admiral Park watched in horror as the massive ship fired its main weapons at a dark, angular vessel that looked like it was made of twisted metal and shadow. The Coalition's plasma cannons struck the enemy ship directly. But instead of exploding, the dark vessel simply absorbed the energy. The plasma beams disappeared into its hull like water soaking into dry earth. Possible, breathed the Coalition admiral on the recording. Our weapons are doing nothing. More enemy ships appeared. Around the Coalition fleet, they moved with a strange, flowing motion, like sharks circling wounded prey. When they fired their own weapons, the Coalition ship's energy shields flickered and died. They are not trying to destroy us, the Coalition admiral realized too late. They are feeding on our power. Transmission cut to static. Lieutenant, Kim looked up from his station, his face pale. Admiral, we are receiving reports from across the galaxy. The Zurithi home system is under attack. Park felt her heart sink. The Zurithi were one of the oldest races in the Coalition. They had ruled their corner of the galaxy for over 50,000 years. Their home system was protected by planetary defense networks that could stop entire invasion fleets. Their defense grid is offline, Kim continued, his voice barely above. A whisper, the whole system is going dark. Park closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The Zurithi had been among the loudest voices mocking humanity's warnings 6 months ago. They were paying the price for their arrogance. Around the command center, the human officers worked with quiet efficiency they had been preparing for. This moment ever since Ambassador Yuna had returned from her failed mission to the Coalition. While the aliens laughed at human primitive fears, humanity had been getting ready for war. Colonel Minsu, Park said, her voice calm and steady. Send the activation code to all Ghost fleets. Begin Phase 1 of the Shadow Protocol. Minsu nodded and began typing commands into his console. Across the solar system, in hidden bases on asteroids and moons, human warships began powering up. Their engines? But these were not the kind of ships the Coalition would recognize. Admiral asked Lieutenant Kim, should we warn the Coalition about what they are really facing? Park looked at the galaxy map again. More red zones were appearing every hour as star systems fell silent. The Coalition's arrogance had doomed them, but innocent people were dying. Not yet, she said finally. First, we show these monsters what? Humanity learned in the dark. Then we decide if the Coalition deserves our help. The hidden base fell silent, except for the hum of computers and the distant sound of ships launching into the void. The real war was about to begin. The refugee camp on Kepler 442b looked like a city made of scraps. Thousands of beings from different worlds had built shelters from whatever they could find. Broken ship parts, torn fabric, pieces of metal. The proud aliens who once ruled star systems now lived in fear. Jumping at every shadow, Captain Sung Yeho walked through the camp without making a sound. His special suit made him almost invisible, bending light around his body like water flowing. Around a stone, the refugees could not see him, but he could see everything. He stopped near a group of blue creatures with many arms. These were Valaxians, the same aliens who had laughed at Ambassador Yuna months ago. Now they huddled together, their voices shaking with fear. I still cannot believe what I saw, one of them was saying. Your strange ships appeared from nowhere and attacked the Devourers. Then they just vanished. It was impossible, another Valaxian replied. We have the best sensors in the galaxy. So nothing can hide from our technology. But I saw it with my own eyes, the first one insisted. The Devourer ship just fell apart. There was no explosion, no fire. It simply came apart like someone had taken it apart piece by piece. Yeho almost smiled behind his helmet. The Coalition aliens still thought their technology was the best in the galaxy. They could not imagine that humans had learned to do things differently. His radio crackled quietly in his ear. Ghost 7, this is Control. We have enemy ships coming your way. 7 Devourer vessels approaching the camp. Time to go to work. I understand. Control. Ghost 7 starting attack, run. Yeho moved away from the refugees and toward the edge of the camp. His ship, the Silent Thunder, was parked nearby, but no one could see it. The ship's hull was made of special materials that bent light around it, making it invisible to both eyes and sensors. He climbed into the cockpit and started the engines. The ship lifted off without making any noise, rising into the dark sky of Kepler 44b. Below him, the refugees continued their daily struggle to survive. Unaware that death was approaching from space, the enemy ships appeared on his scanner like dark spots against the stars. 7 massive vessels that looked like floating cities made of black metal and sharp angles. They moved slowly, confidently, like hunters who had never met anything that could fight back. Yeho had seen recordings of what these ships could do. They did not just destroy their enemies, they ate them. Their hulls could absorb any energy weapon, turning the attack into fuel for their own systems. No wonder the coalition fleets had been helpless against them. But humans had learned to fight differently. Starting quantum tunnel, he whispered to himself. The space around his ship began to twist and bend. Reality itself seemed to fold in on itself as the silent thunder slipped between dimensions. For a few seconds, Yeho existed in a place where the normal rules of physics did not apply. Then he emerged directly behind the lead Devourer ship. His weapons were not like the energy cannons the Coalition used. Instead of shooting beams of plasma or laser light, they fired focused waves that attacked the basic structure of matter itself. The Devourer's hull, designed to absorb energy, had no defense against this kind of attack. The enemy ship simply came apart, its hull unraveled like old cloth, pieces floating away into space. The other Devourer ships turned toward where the attack had come from, but Yeho was already gone, slipping back into the space between dimensions. Down in the refugee camp, the Valaxians stared at their sensor screens in confusion. "What happened?" one of them asked. "The Devourer ship just disappeared. Our sensors show nothing," another replied. "No ships, no weapons fire, nothing. It is like the ship destroyed itself. That is impossible. The Devourers do not destroy themselves." While the aliens tried to understand what they had seen, Yeho was already moving to the next phase of his mission. The remaining Devourer ships were spreading out, heading toward the refugee camp to consume everything they could find. But when they arrived, they found only empty buildings. The refugees were gone. Every single one of them had been evacuated by ships that appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. Thousands of beings from dozens of different species all moved to safety in less than an hour. The Devourers searched the empty camp, their sensors scanning for any sign of life. They found nothing but abandoned shelters and cold cooking fires. Their prey had escaped, taken by ghosts that left no trace of their presence. "Control, this is Ghost 7, Yeho reported as he piloted his invisible ship away from the planet. "Mission complete. All refugees are safe. Good work. Ghost 7 returned to base. Admiral Park wants to speak with you." As Yeho flew back toward the hidden human base on Ceres, he thought about the Coalition delegates who had dismissed humanity's warnings. They had called humans primitive, but they had never understood that sometimes the most advanced technology was the kind that could not be seen. The Devourers were learning that lesson now. For the first time in their existence, they were facing an enemy that could strike without warning and disappear without a trace. The shadows were fighting back. Admiral Song Minji stood in the heart of the most secret place in the solar system. Shadowfall Station was hidden inside a large asteroid floating between Mars and Jupiter. The outside, it looked like just another piece of space rock. But inside, it was humanity's most advanced military base. The station had been built in complete secrecy over the past 10 years. Its walls were lined with technology that made it invisible to every type of sensor the Coalition had ever developed. Even if an alien ship flew right next to it, their instruments would show only empty space. Admiral Captain Ojiun called. From his station, "We have an incoming transmission from Coalition Command. They want to talk to us." Minji turned around, surprised. For months, the Coalition had pretended that humans did not exist. They had cut off all communication after humanity withdrew from Coalition space. Now they wanted to talk. "You sure?" "It is really from Coalition Command," she asked. "Yes, Admiral. Transmission codes are correct." And Admiral ... They are asking for help. Minji felt a cold smile cross her face. The same aliens who had laughed at humanity's warnings were now begging for assistance. She had waited a long time for this moment. "Put the transmission on the main screen," she ordered. The large display at the front of the command center flickered to life. An alien face appeared on the screen, but it was not the proud, arrogant creature Mingi remembered from the Coalition meetings. This alien looked broken, defeated. Admiral Dexuna of the Zerathi had once stood tall and proud, calling humans barely evolved animals. Now her skin was pale, her eyes were red with exhaustion, and her voice shook with fear. "Human vessels," she began. "I am Admiral Dexuna of the Coalition Defense Force. We know you are out there. Our sensors have detected your ships fighting the Devourers. We need your help." Minji said nothing. She wanted to hear what the alien had to say. "Half the galaxy is gone," Dexuna continued, her voice breaking. "My homeworld, the Valaxian core systems, the Thraxian Empire, all destroyed. Billions of lives lost because we were too proud to listen to your warnings." The alien admiral paused, struggling to control her emotions. "We were wrong about you, called you primitive, but you were the only ones who understood the real danger. While we built bigger guns, you learned how to fight an enemy that feeds on energy. Your ghost ships have been the only thing slowing down the Devourers." Captain O stepped closer to Minji. "Admiral, should I tell her about the Shadow Protocol?" Minji held up her hand for silence. She was not ready to reveal humanity's secrets yet, but first, she wanted to hear more. "Admiral Dexuna," she said, her voice cold and calm, "humanity left Coalition space because you refused to listen to our warnings. We spent the last 6 months preparing for a war you said could never happen. Why should we help you now?" The alien's shoulders slumped. For a moment, she looked like she might cry. "Because despite everything we did to you, you are still fighting to save people. Your ships have been rescuing refugees, protecting the innocent. You are better than we ever gave you credit for." Minji looked around the command center. She saw the faces of the men and women who had worked day and night to prepare for this war. They had been mocked and dismissed by the Coalition, but they had never stopped trying to protect all life in the galaxy. Lieutenant Kim Johan looked up from his station. "Admiral, we are receiving reports from our ghost fleets, or more refugee. Convoys have been successfully evacuated. The Devourers found nothing but empty space, and the Coalition survivors." Minji asked, still fleeing toward the galactic core. "Our ships are providing invisible escort, but they do not know we are there." Mingi nodded. Even while the Coalition had treated humanity as inferior, humans had continued to protect alien refugees. They had saved millions of lives without asking for thanks or recognition. Admiral Vexuna, Mingi said, turning back to the screen. "Humanity has spent decades studying the Devourers. We found their ruins on dead worlds that the Coalition ignored. We learned their weaknesses while you dismissed our findings as primitive superstition." "I know," the alien replied. "We were fools. Our arrogance blinded us to the truth. We developed stealth technology, quantum tunneling drives, and weapons designed specifically to fight an enemy that feeds on energy. We prepared for this war while you built monuments to your own greatness." Dexuna nodded sadly. "Your ghost fleets have been striking the Devourers across the galaxy. Ships that appear from nowhere destroy their targets and vanish without a trace. It is the only thing that has given us hope." Mingi made her decision. The Coalition had been wrong about humanity, but that did not mean she would let innocent people die. "Very well," she said. "Humanity will help. But this time, we do things our way. The Coalition follows humanity's lead, or there will be no galaxy left to save." "Yes," Dexuna said quickly. "Anything you ask. We will follow your orders." "Good. Captain O, begin Phase 2 of the Shadow Protocol. It is time to show the galaxy what humans can really do." Around the command center, officers began working at their stations with renewed energy. The real war was about to begin, and this time, humanity would not be fighting alone. The largest devourer fleet in galactic history moved through space like a dark storm. 10,000 ships, each one the size of a city, heading straight for Earth. For months, The Coalition survivors had believed that humanity's home world was already dead. The Sol system had gone completely silent. No radio signals, no ship traffic. Nothing but as the massive enemy fleet approached Earth, something impossible happened. Space itself seemed to tear open in front of the Devourers. Hundreds of human ships appeared from nowhere, materializing like ghosts becoming solid. At the front of the formation was the largest human vessel anyone had ever seen. The Eternal Vigilance. Admiral Kong Soyan stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the enemy fleet on her screens. Behind her, Commander Nam Hyok and the other officers worked quietly at their stations, preparing for the fight of their lives. "Open all communication channels," Soyan ordered. "This is Admiral Kang Soyan of the Human Defense Force." She broadcast to the entire galaxy. "To all Coalition survivors hiding in the outer systems, Earth stands. Earth has always stood, and now Earth fights back." Across the galaxy, alien refugees huddled in their hiding places listened to the transmission with amazement. Earth was still alive. The humans were still fighting. On her refugee command ship, Admiral Vexuna stared at her communication screen in shock. "How is this possible?" she whispered. "We thought Earth was destroyed months ago. Below the human fleet, Earth itself was completely transformed. The beautiful blue and green planet that had once sparkled with oceans and forests was now a fortress world. Massive weapon platforms covered every continent. The moon had been turned into a giant gun, its surface bristling with cannons. The asteroid belt, hidden battle stations prepared to fight.
"Aye,
Commander," Soyan said. "What are the Devourers doing?" Nam Hyok checked his sensors. "They are trying to scan our defenses, Admiral, but their sensors are not finding anything." Soyan smiled. "That is because they are looking for the wrong kind of technology. They expect energy shields and plasma weapons. They do not understand quantum barriers and dimensional weapons." The lead Devourer's ship was enormous, bigger than Earth's moon. Dark tentacles of energy reached out from its hull, trying to grab the human ships and drain their power. This was how the Devourers had defeated every other fleet in the galaxy, by feeding on their enemies' own weapons. But the tentacles passed through empty space. The human ships were there, but also not there. They existed in a state between dimensions, real but untouchable. "All ships," Soyan commanded, "begin Omega Protocol." What happened next was, unlike any battle in galactic history, the human fleet did not fire conventional weapons. Instead, they used technology that attacked the very structure of reality itself. Quantum disruptors tore at the forces holding the Devourer ships together. The enemy vessels did not explode, they simply came apart. Their atoms scattered across space. Dimensional weapons opened holes in reality, sending entire sections of the Devourer fleet into empty pocket universes where they could consume nothing but darkness. The massive enemy fleet, which had seemed unstoppable, began to fall apart. Ships that had survived for millions of years were destroyed in seconds. The Devourers, who had never met an enemy they could not consume, found themselves facing weapons they could not understand. On her refugee ship, Admiral Vexuna watched the battle with growing amazement. "How?" she whispered. "How are they doing this?" On the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance, Admiral Soyan heard the question through the communication channels. She decided to answer. "We studied them," she said, her voice calm and steady. "While you dismissed our warnings as primitive fears, we dug up their ruins and learned their secrets. We discovered that the Devourers are not invincible. They're just energy parasites that have never met prey that refuse to feed them." The battle continued for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. One by one, the Devourer ships were destroyed, or banished to empty dimensions. The fleet that had consumed half the galaxy was torn apart by an enemy they could not touch. Finally, the last enemy ship was gone. The space around Earth was filled with debris and the strange distortions left. Bidimensional weapons. The greatest threat the galaxy had ever known was defeated. As the human fleet powered down their weapons, Earth began broadcasting again. The Fortress World's transmissions carried across the galaxy, reaching every surviving Coalition outpost. and refugee ship. To all coalition survivors, Admiral Soyan announced, "Humanity offers an alliance. Not the condescending membership you once gave us, but a true partnership between equals. The galaxy is wounded, but it can heal. We can rebuild together." In the months that followed, the surviving alien fleets began their long journey home. They found their worlds empty, but not destroyed. The Devourers had consumed the energy and life from these planets. But with human help, they could be restored. A new order emerged in the galaxy. The Coalition's arrogance was replaced by humility. The aliens who had once called humans primitive now recognized that different approaches to survival were valuable. And in the darkness between the stars, humanity's ghost fleets continued their silent patrol. They watched for new threats, protecting a galaxy that had finally learned to listen to Earth's warnings. The shadows had become guardians, and the galaxy was safe.